Hello everyone, it's Frank again with another ATV video. Today we're going to be flushing out the coolant of the Can-Am and filling it back up with some new coolant. First thing we have to do is flush out the old coolant, which is not as easy as it sounds with a radiator relocation kit. First, I unhooked the actual radiator, which technically didn't have to be the first thing to do, it's just the one that's the easiest to do, so I did it first. The relocation kit has a metal frame that's bolted down to the actual ATV, and then the radiator itself is bolted into that frame with two little bushings on it so it doesn't vibrate too much. Once the frame is off the ATV and the radiator is loose from the frame, you can separate them and stand up the radiator. This is also a good time to clean out any dirt that got in there. As you can tell, the coolant it had looked pretty good, but since I just got this ATV and I don't know how the previous owner treated it, I thought it would be a good idea to swap it out. Now, to really empty it out, you have to remove the radiator hose where it connects to the actual engine. However, you will notice there's a fender in the way, so I started removing bolts until there was enough space for me to get the hose off. This means I had to take off 2 bolts from the fender, 2 bolts from the foot pegs, and then 1 plastic clamp that held the piece behind the fender. I really don't know what it's called, but you'll see it in the video now. As you can tell, this plastic clip was a bit of a pain in the ass to remove, and unsurprisingly, it came off as soon as I turned the camera down. This is the hose you have to remove, and notice all the extra wiggle room I got by removing those bolts. Notice the coolant dripping all over the skid plate and just landing on everything, and how the wind's kind of pushing it everywhere? And that is why the bottom of my ATV was covered in coolant in the last video. It took it a while for it to drip all the way out, so at a couple points I had to move the hose around and I had to move the radiator around so the last little bit would come out. But once it was all out, it was time to put everything back together again, at least the plastics and the foot pegs. So now we're getting towards the part of the video where I actually put in the new coolant, and I thought I should probably start talking about how I picked which one and why I picked it. I come from a background in cars, and I usually just put in regular coolant, you know, antifreeze, 50/50, whatever you want to call it, and it usually gets the job done. However, I was suggested that I should probably put engine ice into the Can-Am. So after doing some research, I found out that engine ice is actually pretty good. The only problem is it doesn't mix very well with regular antifreeze. It creates some like sludge. So I would have had to really flush out the lines and really flush out the radiator to make sure that doesn't happen. But while I was reading about engine ice, I found out about another product called water wetter. Now, water wetter does not have any antifreeze type of chemicals in it at all, so it will freeze under certain temperatures. Good thing is, though, I live in southern Florida, so if it ever is below freezing temperatures, I'm not going to be outside on the ATV, because the world is ending. Normally with water wetter, you would have to mix it with distilled water for a certain ratio. But to avoid that whole headache, I just got the pre-mixed version. I ended up buying a half a gallon, which wasn't quite enough, so I ended up having to fill it up a little bit more with distilled water, but not that much. I wasn't off by a lot. The manual actually says it takes in 2.6 quarts, and since I bought half a gallon, which is 2 quarts, I was only off by 0.6 of 1 quart. Either way, I took the ATV out for riding basically the same weekend that I did this. It didn't overheat, the fan seemed to turn on relatively low amount of times, so I guess it worked pretty well. As always, if you enjoy this kind of content, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.